The blame in the mirror, Proverbs chapter 19, verse 3. Elias Morrow was not a wicked man, at least not in his own eyes. He went to church on holidays, said grace before meals, and tipped the waitress when he remembered. But deep inside, Elias believed that life owed him something. He was entitled to it. After all, he had worked hard, and surely that should be enough to earn the smooth road that he desired. When he inherited his father's farm, Elias promised himself he would turn it into a grand estate. He foolishly borrowed money to buy new equipment, hired laborers he couldn't afford, and spent his evenings in the tavern boasting about the fortune he was certain would come. When a friend warned him about the growing debt, Elias laughed it off. "Just trust me, my friend," he said. "The Lord helps those who help themselves." But the Lord had not promised to bless his recklessness. The rains came late that year, the crops withered, and the new machines broke down. The bank called in his loan, and within months, the Morrow farm was no longer his. He stood one morning at the edge of the dusty field, fists clenched, staring at the foreman who nailed a foreclosure notice to the gate. "That's it," Elias muttered bitterly. "The Lord has turned against me." He stormed into the little chapel that stood at the crossroads, the one his father had helped build decades ago. Dust floated in the sunbeams through cracked, stained glass. Elias threw his hat to the ground and shouted, "I served you! I prayed, I worked, I believed. Why would you let this happen to me?" From behind him came the quiet scrape of a broom. It was old Martha, the caretaker, sweeping the aisle as she always did. She didn't look up as she said, "You're shouting at the wrong person, Elias." He turned, indignant. "You don't understand. I've lost everything." She leaned on her broom, her eyes soft but steady. The old proverb says, people ruin their lives by their own foolishness, and then are angry at the Lord. Proverbs chapter 19, verse 3. Her words hung in the air like dust motes in the light. Elias wanted to argue, to defend himself, but something in that old saying made him pause and reflect. He thought of the tavern nights, the boasting, the ignored warnings. He thought of the foolish debts he'd called faith. Slowly, he sank onto a pew. "I thought I was doing what was right," he whispered. "Maybe," Martha said gently. "But sometimes what we call faith is just pride with a foolish prayer stitched on top." Elias bowed his head, the anger draining from him, replaced by a heavy sorrow. Outside, the sun slipped behind a cloud, and for the first time in a long while he prayed, not for success or blessing, but for wisdom. In time, he found work on another man's farm. He rose before dawn, kept his word, and learned the quiet rhythm of wisdom. And sometimes, when the wind carried the sound of church bells through the fields, Elias would smile faintly and whisper, "The Lord didn't ruin my life. I did, and he was kind enough to show me the truth."